President Donald Trump making his first address to Congress tonight.
Some big points include building the wall, immigration changes, education, and the Affordable Care Act.
We want all Americans to succeed, but that can't happen in an environment of lawless chaos. We must restore integrity and the rule of law at our borders. For that reason, we will soon begin the construction of a great wall along our southern border. If we are guided by the well-being of American citizens, then I believe Republicans and Democrats can work together to achieve an outcome that has eluded our country for decades. So I am calling on all Democrats and Republicans in Congress to work with us to save Americans from this imploding Obamacare disaster. Here are the principles that should guide Congress as we move to create a better health care system for all Americans. First, we should ensure that Americans with pre-existing conditions have access to coverage and that we have a stable transition for Americans currently enrolled in the health care exchanges. Education is the civil rights issue of our time. I am calling upon members of both parties to pass an education bill that funds school choice for disadvantaged youth, including millions of African American and Latino children.
Our political reporter Rick Albin is here now with more on what the president had to say.
I think the important takeaway from this is in that short bit of his speech, 3 times, he said, I'm calling on Democrats and Republicans, Republicans and Democrats. This is something we haven't heard a great deal of in the first 40 days. And in this speech tonight, he was trying to reach out. He was saying about immigration, that he thought that there were compromises that could be had. He talked about a merit-based immigration system. I don't know how that'll go over with Democrats, but the idea is he started to put some more detail out there on the Affordable Care Act. Not only did he say that he wanted a pathway for those people who were already on the exchanges to get off, but he wanted to keep the pre-existing conditions, and he wanted to be able to sell health care across state lines, something Republicans have repeatedly called for. You heard him talking about choice in education. That's not new. He talked about that on the campaign trail, but now he's calling for the budget to reflect that. So we did get some detail tonight. We didn't get all the detail we would like. We certainly didn't know what all the detail of the budget's going to be, but this was the first time I think that we had heard this much. Now, the question is, when do we hear more?
Absolutely. They'll start to parse that out now as Congress gets to work. They're going to have to come up with a compromise here between all of this.
Absolutely. And at the same time, you got to put a budget together that reflects the priorities, but the president will have to put a budget together. Congress is working on the Affordable Care Act. There are a ton of moving pieces to this.
Right.
It's not going to happen quickly or easily, and it's likely to be a little messy.
That's why we have you here.
Yeah.
Thank you, Rick.
Democrats were up right after the president with their response. The former governor of Kentucky had said the president needs to know that just because people disagree with him doesn't make them his enemies. He also talked about the Affordable Care Act and issued a call to action to keep it from being repealed.
In 2010, this country made a commitment that every American deserved health care they could afford and rely on. And we Democrats are going to do everything in our power to keep President Trump and the Republican Congress from reneging on that commitment. But we're going to need your help by speaking out.
And in response to the president's immigration executive orders, dozens of protesters marched downtown today. This group gathered in Calder Plaza, holding signs referencing dignity, respect, and protection for immigrants and their families, who protesters said are being attacked by the Trump administration. Then they marched downtown. One mother shared her struggle trying to get her ex-husband and father of her daughter back in the U.S. after being forced back to Honduras after trying to come to the country legally, and she says being told no.
The anxiety is very intense, the mental stress for families of any moment, any time. If you call your spouse, they don't answer, that could be the last time that you see them.
The woman's ex-husband is now a resident in the U.S.